Hello and welcome to episode 222 of Quarkus Insights. We're going to be talking about AI-assisted development with Quarkus Dev MCP, and we've got Ozan and Phillip as our guests. So, welcome, folks. Although before we jump into to the cool stuff, I think we've got just a little bit of news. So I can push the news button. We had many of the team were at DevOps last week, so that was fun, and a lot of us were presenting about Quarkus, and those videos are now available online. So if you couldn't get to DevOps, then you can see. So I'll paste into the chat the link to the issue. So what we've been doing is we've got on the discussion, we've got a tracker for the events, and we've pasted in all of the links to our DevOps talks as well. So if you want to catch up with those, this is the way. And I think last week as well, we did a whole bunch of minor releases. So those will be coming through on your Dependabot or your Renovate and that kind of thing. But I don't think there was anything too sort of newsworthy in those releases. So with that, I think we can probably jump right in to the topic of today, which is Dev MCP. But before we do that, Ozan and Phillip, do you want to introduce yourself? Ozan first.
Yeah, I'll go first. So I'm Ozan. I'm working at the Quarkus core team, mostly about messaging topics. Then I contributed a bit to the dev services, now a bit to the AI-assisted development.
Yeah, and I'm Phillip. I'm also in the Quarkus core team. These days, mostly Dev UI and the assistants that I'm working on.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, and the Dev UI is one of those things. Everybody who tries Quarkus says, wow, this Dev UI is so cool. And you just keep adding new cool stuff. So it's hard to keep up with the amount of coolness in the Dev UI at the moment. But I guess that's why we're here today, is to try and give a bit of an update on some of the cool stuff that Ozan and Phillip have been adding.
I have a comment about the Dev UI. Yes, I'm the overhead in the code. The cool stuff about Dev UI is that it was already intelligent before we added intelligence. And this is due to the fact that with all the build time optimization, we get to know a lot about your application, so we can do a lot of smart things. So you can imagine if you add actual intelligence to the already smart intelligent Dev UI, you can do very interesting things. So that's why we're here today.
Yeah, nicely put. So who's going first? And have we got
Phillip goes first.
Go.
Yeah, so you can share. Is my screen shared?
It is now.
Okay. So I'm gonna start off kind of continuing where I left off last time that I was on Insights. We got to the end, and I wanted to show Dev MCP. I was just starting to play with Dev MCP, and my demo didn't properly work yet. But I'm also going to show some of the other stuff that we discussed that is assistant related, not necessarily Dev MCP, but Chappy in general related. And then we'll work our way into Dev MCP. I won't take up too much time because I think Ozan's showing all the cool stuff. But one of the first things I want to show is some of the extensions has now added some use cases, and we are getting more and more use cases added. I'll quickly show the cron builder. So if you have the scheduler, you can now do something like, let's say I'm going to actually just copy and paste it. So I'll do something like that in plain English every first Sunday of the month at 9 in the morning. And this will now take that English and convert it to a cron and hopefully also show me some code.
I like that little qualifier at the top that says Quarkus Assistant can make mistakes, check responses, which is of course totally true. But you also just know that when it's a cron thing, like Quarkus Assistant is going to be 10 times less likely to make a mistake than any human, because look at the cron.
So yeah, it came back with the cron, and it shows you a little example. What I actually want to show here is one of the other things that that we've added since last time that was on our to-do list. And if I show you the log, this is where it's at. So the first thing I want to show it, you'll see here that the Chappy lock or the assistant lock is saying that it's narrowing to scheduler. So this is the RAG that's kicking in. The RAG now, there's now a RAG built in by default. So when we release a new version of Quarkus, we ingest all the documentation for that version and make it available as a Docker image. And when you start Chappy, it will see which version you are using, pull in that Docker container and start it up for Chappy to use. So now when we interact with Chappy, we have RAG available. And you can see here, we've also narrowed the RAG down to the scheduler already. And then somewhere here, this is what we've sent. And there's the user prompt. And somewhere here, we'll start adding RAG context. And this comes now straight from the documentation of this version of Quarkus, and that enhances or augment the context that we sent.
Philip, let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
You started, but I think you have to explain first how you get to this screen. So this is a stock Quarkus app in which you've added what? What's the dependencies to get to this point?
So this is version of the to-do backend, which is the normal to-do demo app that we have as an example. I might have added the scheduler just so that I can have this tile, but basically, if we look at the POM, it's probably quite messy because it's all on my local machine. But yeah, somewhere here, I will have a bunch of extensions that I've added, mostly to test what I'm showing. But so I've also added Chappy. I'm running 999 snapshot again because I'm showing stuff that is going to be released soon. But yeah, so I've added Chappy, and then obviously I've added the scheduler and a few other extensions.
And Chappy defaults to which LLM?
It doesn't. So you configure it. So in my case, I've configured it against OpenAI. I've put my key in, and yeah, I'll get to the screen a bit later as well.
Cool. Well,
so I kind of continue from where I left off last time, but I assume not everybody is, or not the same audience is here.
Not everybody.
I'll share the link for the last session so that if anybody wants to speed catch up and watch it on 10x speed, then you can come back in 20 minutes.
So what else do I want to show? The other thing that is new in terms of a use case, which there's a few new ones, but I just want to show another one. So inside the database connection pool management role, you can now speak English and not SQL. So I can say, show me all the to-dos that is not done. And this should translate it from plain English to SQL, execute the SQL and give me the result. So there it shows me what SQL it got. I can also kind of go back and then see the SQL that it came back with. And it shows me there. And again, if I look at this, I'm not going to find it now because the log is getting big. But you should see that the RAG kicked in and it narrowed it down to this extension, and it found a piece in that documentation. Because we now have RAG, we can also now have a feature where we can talk just plain old chat way, but have RAG kicked in. So now we have this chat screen, which you get when you add Chappy. And you'll see that it already added my two discussions that I have. This is the select to-dos not done. So this is the one that I've just shown. And here's the cron one. So what you can do is you can initiate the chat from your extension, but I can continue here with my chat if I want to fine tune this. You can also see here exactly what did we send on your behalf to the LLM. But you can also start a new chat. So I can just start a new chat and start asking any questions. When I start asking questions from out the chat window, we can't narrow it down to a specific extension like we've done with the scheduler and the database, but so it'll be a more general RAG, but still, yeah, you still have RAG. And just to show the RAG settings, back on the screen where you do any settings, under Assistant, when you set all of this, you now have a way to configure your RAG. By default, it will be enabled. And these are default settings, but you can also fine tune this to whatever works for you better. Especially the score on the RAG could maybe, if you see you get too many results back that it's not relevant, you can probably make the score a bit higher. And then that brings me to MCP. So like I said last time, we kind of just started playing with MCP. We now have a Dev MCP server that's not enabled by default, but and this you don't need the Chappy extension for. This is just if you have a Quarkus app, you will now have a Dev MCP server, and you can enable it. And what this should do is, if I go back here now and I say, okay, I want to take part not only do I have an MCP server for a tool to use, like what Ozan is going to show just a bit later, but Chappy itself can now take part in that Dev MCP. So you can now enable Dev MCP for your assistant. You can add some other servers if you want, but by default, the Dev MCP one will be added. And I should now be able to go start a new chat and do something like, can you change the lock level for IO Quarkus.sample, which is this app, to debug. Now, if I look at the log again now, it should print a bit more because it will now find all the tools that's available. So this is all the tools that it will try and see which one is relevant for this. And usually when I test this, it comes back with, it wants to update my applicational properties. But so it says here, this is the tool that it wants to use. And then I'll say, no, I want to only change this for the current running app, not persist it. So you can see here the tool that it wanted to use or suggested to use was the update property, which would make a permanent change to the lock level. Now it should hopefully come back with update lock level on the lock stream, right? So this will just update it as if you've updated it from Dev UI. So then I can say, yes, apply this now. And then while it is applying it, we can look at the server log, and we should see, as soon as it actually does the work, lock level updated to debug. Right, so the assistant updated the lock level to debug, and it came back with the result. So if we go back to here, MCP, you can see Chappy is connected. You can also see all the tools that's available. So that update lock level will be somewhere here. This one here. You can also test it straight here if you want to. You can just put it in here and test the actual test execution. You can also switch it on or off. It has default values on whether or not this MCP method is on or not. And if you want to do it a little bit different, you can change that. And
how are these values? Where are these values coming from? Is this something that extension owners need to code, or is it sort of automatically discovered from what's already exposed in the Dev UI?
No, extension developers have to do two things: add a description, because obviously needs a description, and tell me what the default enabled value is. Oh, there might be a default for that. I think by default it will be switched off. So if you want to explicitly switch it on for the user, then you have to explicitly say this is on by default. But yeah, so not all Dev UI JSON RPC methods are available as Dev MCP. the extension owner will have to go and do some work. I've done some of them, but yeah, there's probably more that we can do.
Otherwise, there would be a lot, right? We have like tons of them. So yeah.
Yeah, because this is always a subset of whatever extensions you have. So same as Dev UI. So the cards that you see here is a subset of all the extensions. It's whatever is in your app. But the reason why we kind of allow it to be switched on and off is so that extension developers can say, well, this one probably should be on, but for the rest, we'll switch it off and allow the user to turn it on or off. Or things like, let's say, talking to the file system, for instance, we can allow the user to switch it off because they might have a different MCP server or a tool like Ozan will show that can do that already. So you don't need to go through our server. So to wrap up, I want to quickly show this. So this is the slide from last time. And the green is now what I have added. So last time, this was what we said, okay, we still need to look to work on. So some more extension use cases. Since then, Hibernate is a very cool example that I didn't show, but the scheduler and some more stuff on Grow. Testing, nothing done there yet. O2RAG per extension, that's done, but there's still some fine tuning we can do there, especially on how we ingest, and we can maybe discuss that at the end. Chat with documentation, that's also done, but also again, more features that we have in mind. Fine-tuning prompting is also kind of ongoing. One of the things that did change is when you are an extension developer, you can now define, previously you couldn't, but now you can define what your expected object structure is of what you want back. Previously, we just gave a map back and hope for the best. But now, as part of the prompt, you will just give this class or record is what I'm expecting back, and we will put a JSON schema definition in the context when we send it up. And then, yeah, MCP last time was just a question mark because we just started looking at it. But now Dev MCP is available, and yeah, hopefully now Ozan is going to wow you with all the features. So I'll hand over to him.
Well, wowing is a bit subjective, but we will see. We will vibe code a small portion of the application. Am I sharing it or
No?
No, not yet.
Sorry, so I can enable you.
Phil, we spoke a lot about RAG, but what's powering the RAG is the embeddings that you create and publish with each release of the Quarkus, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we should say it again because the Quarkus documentation gets indexed, and we create the embeddings and we publish for each version an embedding store.
Yeah. So
which the RAG uses later.
Yeah. So I mean, we can go into detail of that, but basically, when a new version of Quarkus gets released, we pull down the source. We look at the ADOCs of the documentation. We pull that in. We enhance it with some metadata. So we read parts of the ADOC to figure out the extension name and tags and all sorts of stuff, that's information that's inside that ADOC, to create more metadata around the thing that we're going to ingest. And then we actually start up a PG vector database in a test container, ingest all the documentation, export the SQL, build with Jib, build an image, publish that to a registry, and now there's an image available that a dev service can start up. Chappy now has a dev service that starts up this version, and repopulate it with the vector database. We actually reuse that database for storage. Is what I didn't show. I'm not sharing anymore, right?
No, yeah, that was my second point. So every interaction in the chat doesn't get sent to a remote server. It stays, except the OpenAI, if you want to use that.
So I'm connected to OpenAI, but if you have a better laptop than I have, and you can run a local model, you can keep things local. And then this history actually stores in that same database.
Yeah.
And that same database is this one here, the assistant store, which is really just a dev service that that we populate. Yeah. Okay, cool. Now over to you.
Yeah. Holly, can you switch the screens?
Yeah, do you want to, because at the moment I think we'll get an infinity mirror as soon as I.
Is it
Yeah,
better now?
yeah,
Yes.
that's better.
So what I'm going to show, as Philip said, is we are going to start with an empty application that was created using the Quarkus create command. I'll just write let's say Hibernate ORM, Kafka, OpenAPI, sorry, the REST extension, and Quarkus Chappy extension. So this I've already created, and I will start first the dev mode. And for this demo, it seems like a VS Code, but I'm using the Cursor IDE, which is an AI-assisted development IDE. It implements an agent mode, a planning mode, etc. And behind the scenes, it can use multiple models. It uses OpenAI and Claude, like in conjunction. I think it chooses the model to use. And all this demo, I've always done it using Claude Code, which is a CLI-based one. But this morning, I had an issue with resource exhaustion with the subscription we had. So I had to switch it back to Cursor. But the idea is also to show that using Quarkus, it doesn't really matter a lot on what tool that you're using. The important thing is with the dev mode and dev UI, we propose the right tools for the AI agent to use and assist itself on the development. So I've run the dev mode. I can check that dev UI is up and running. What I've gotten as versions is again, because we are using more or less a work in progress. It will arrive to Quarkus very soon. But we are using the main of Quarkus, some unreleased one, and again a main of Quarkus Chappy. So what I'm going to do is, maybe I can show you what it created as containers and dev services, etc. Or maybe here is better. So this is the assisted store that Philip just showed. It comes with the PG vector image, and the usual dev services that are always there, like because I'm using the Hibernate with Postgres and the Kafka, both are there. So now, and because I generated this application, there already is some code, but which is not really very relevant for us. What I'm going to do is to start by as if we are creating a small microservice, which will handle orders. So I'm going to first go ahead and create an order entity by saying that create an order entity with total amount as fields, creation time, and status. Maybe I'll put a comma there. And now it will go ahead and create the entity for us. It checks the existing code.
And this is all Cursor doing this so far.
This is all Cursor. This is all Cursor doing it. I was going to say that. Until now, okay. Until now, Quarkus doesn't do anything. This Cursor or Cloud Code will do it properly on most of the cases. But what I also did is to configure Cursor to use a DMCP server of Quarkus. What it does is to when we configure it, the MCP server configurations are usually the same on all AI assistant agents. but it's not a standard. So so take it as a grain of salt. It can change a bit. Basically, I've given the URL. I think by default it's the HTTP mode, and what it does is to load the tools and resources that are available with the application, with the dev mode. And secondly, what I've given is a set of instructions with the agents.md file. Again, this seems to be a standard. Most of the AI agents, coding agents, do support it, except for Cloud. Cloud uses the cloud.md, which is more or less the same idea. And I've said that search the docs before making plans. I try to make it very explicitly and convincing with 3 exclamation marks. And I said, if you're running Quarkus Dev mode, go ahead and trigger the Quarkus continuous tests if user wants to run Quarkus tests. So now I created an entity by using nothing MCP, but I can maybe go ahead and check if you can search the docs. Can you search docs? And normally it will go ahead and check that it finds a tool called Quarkus Chappy search docs. It's when it's with, I don't know which parameter, I don't know. Let me see. Oh, it queried for Panache entity with big decimal and local date fields, because that's what was the context with the open window, I think. And,
maybe also mention that search doc is an MCP endpoint that we've added now to Chappy.
Yes.
And that's what it does, yeah.
So yeah, as Phillip was showing about the RAG and all the embeddings that are coming with the assistant store, we now expose the same embedding store with a search tool to search for Quarkus docs. So this only uses the embeddings that we have Quarkus on Quarkus guides, but in the future we'll be adding other extension docs into this as well. So now that I know that it can go ahead and search for docs, I will say create a CRUD resource on the order entity. And this is usually a simple task as well. Maybe something that I didn't mention is by creating the order entity, I didn't set that it needs to use Panache because there's already an entity which was using Panache. It's used Panache as well. And now, because I think I just search, I told it to search for docs. It also had the incentive to search for docs for what? Create REST CRUD resource or Panache entity, and it filter it down to Panache Hibernator and Panache extension. And now I'm guessing that it created a nice enough resource for me to handle CRUD operations on the order entity.
So do you think if you hadn't primed it with the idea of searching for the docs, do you think it still would?
It depends on the model. It depends on how the model is given a system prompt. And of course, we have the thing about like a recent context item is a bit higher in priority than something in the middle. So there are two things. One thing, you can prime it a bit like that, or again, the agents.md also has this very convincing exclamation marks about searching docs. And usually, sometimes it goes into the planning mode, and when it tries to plan something, it has the incentive to search for dogs using the tool.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
How do you know the context 7 site?
Yes.
Yes. So how does that compare to that? Like, why it's different? Worse.
It is. We will come, of course, to that later. But there are things that we can be taken from the context 7 and how it's implemented. Of course, context 7 also has an index for the Quarkus guides and Quarkus docs and some other projects that we use in Quarkus. First of all, it doesn't cover the whole Quarkiverse, so all the extension ecosystem. Secondly, it is very much predestined to the API is a bit different. So you give it a number of tokens that you expect as a result, and it seems to prioritize the code snippets. So that's something that we can take away and maybe include to the search docs tool as well. And secondly, this thing will be useful for every Quarkus version that we publish. So every Quarkus version will have its own docs, and because you are using in your coding environment a specific Quarkus version with specific versions of your extensions, it will filter it down to the specific docs of that version. So that's a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, that's so useful because there's nothing worse than getting it, coming back and saying, doing it this way. And it's like, well, yeah, but that's the version that I'm not using.
It happens because the whole tool is undeterministic. It may happen in some cases that it doesn't find the thing that you were trying to make it do. Because like maybe you don't express yourself very precisely. Maybe that's the first thing that it finds in its searching algorithm. When it tries to match the embeddings in terms of vector similarity. So it's sometimes you need to nudge it a bit to use some other paradigm than what it's trying to do. We will maybe see that later on.
And also I should say that our index, we control it. So in theory, we can optimize it with what we
exactly. Of course, exactly.
Plus it's local once you download the image. Yes.
Sorry.
Plus it's local after you download the image.
Yes.
It's all local. So it should
exactly. The store is running locally as a PG vector image, and right now the implementation is open to improvements. Of course, like we are looking at the ASCII docs, creating embeddings like that. We think that we can do better on that. Again, context 7 has some interesting ideas about like prioritizing the code snippets that it returns. That can be very useful. And it's naturally by the API, it's contextualizes the embeddings it returns. So we also need to do that. We will discuss a bit that with Phillip later on. So now what I can give, it's created the order resource. I don't really care what it's created, but because I'm white coding. So now I want to do test those endpoints. And usually it does two things. One is maybe trigger the continuous testing. Oh, it did that. I wanted that. And sometimes it goes at and uses curl to tap the endpoints locally. And both is a bit useful in different cases, but now it's ran the continuous testing, and it is now creating a test for the order resource test.
Yeah, because there's a MCP to get the endpoints as well, because you can see
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Not sure if it's enabled by default, Philip, by the way. You can check that. Oh, it is. Yeah. But all these things, the idea is that you don't control what will be called. You just give enough information to the LLM for it to operate more or less independently. No, I don't want it to run the test using Maven because I want to trigger continuous testing. And that's something that you see very often. Like it says that everything is passing, even though it didn't really do anything. It's very optimistic in its way of being. And again, different models act differently. So when I was doing the same thing with Claude code, it's first like started the continuous testing and then did the wrote the order resource test and then checked that the resources was the test was running, etc. So now it triggered the continuous testing, which starts continuous testing mode, and of course we have some failing tests, and some context is a bit missing in Cursor, and now we know because it doesn't know that it doesn't need to trigger the run all just after starting the continuous test because it already runs automatically. So now for this one I will skip, and I think it will check the results, or it check the status. It said, "Oh, 3 tests are failing." Yeah, sorry, Philip.
On that, what you just said, basically what it means is we need to enhance the description of that MCP tool, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's hit and miss, and it's something that we can learn by going, and models also evolve on that. But it's a difficult dial to choose, because if you go ahead and give a lot of information, you are eating up on the context that the LLM operates. So now we are saying that like we are consuming 29K tokens out of 200K, and each interaction eats up on that context. And of course, because MCP tools are sent in every interaction, if you have a huge MCP tool list with lots of descriptions, it can be hindering for the LLM performance as well. So now it says, oh, I want to get results from the MCP, get results of continuous testing. Oh, by the way, I can, in most tools, Cursor and Claude Code as well, you can go ahead and like create an allow list for things that will be the MCP tool calls that will be allowed always, etc. So now I'm just showing it to like I don't do that because I wanted to show that it will do that like that call. So now that it received the continuous testing results, it can go ahead and parse what was the test that was failing, what was the I guess the logs, the error that had in that test, and now it did the changes, it get the status again, and it's all happy that every test is passing. And I say, of course, keep all. I don't want to look at the code. And so that was continuous testing and how the tool, the LLM, interacts with Quarkus MCP tools to like run the tests, get the results, iterate on that, And all because, and like thanks to the continuous testing and dev mode. So now we can go a bit further because we have some time. I can go ahead and say I want to send Kafka events to order events topic, and each time there is a order update. Like every time I try testing these scenarios, the prompt is a bit different. The result is a bit different as well. But again, it had the incentive to search for docs. Let's see what it searched for. How to send Kafka messages using emitter in Quarkus.
It's interesting. It must have done something before then to get the emitter, because that wasn't in your prompt.
No, I'm guessing that because it has in the generated application, it has an example of sending Kafka events with emitter.
Yeah.
And it parses the code, at least some portion of it, to have it in its context. And then emitter send message to Kafka topic with channel annotation, etc. Let's see what it generated. Of course, there are some. I'll keep it and see if it can actually fix the errors. So this API, the emitter API isn't it's not used like this, and it's found that it needs to return a completion stage instead of uni. It could have used a different API as well. Okay, if it really wants to use any. Again, we are vibe coding. Like this demo could have been very different if we were doing some serious stuff. But again, some interesting stuff. It wants to use another tool, which comes again with the dev UI to get Kafka topics. I'm guessing that then later on it will try to get Kafka messages from that topic as well. Maybe it will fail on that because we restarted the server by that time. And of course, it generated the configuration as well. I'll just get accept all. I'll stop that because I think it will fail on that tool call because the server restarted by the time we were making this call. And the MCP tool is provided by the dev UI. And if the application running in dev mode isn't up, we can't really access the MCP tool either. But the tests are passing. I can go ahead and say that test sent events using curl. Not sure what. Oh, it's created an order annotation for the test orders. We will see if this time we still have an error with. Oh, that's the first time that I'm hitting this. The code cache. The code cache. Yes. And not sure why we haven't been hitting this for a regular dev mode session. But apparently we have that now. But let's cancel it. What I wanted it to do is tap the URLs with curl and then check by getting the topics and like actually messages from those topics. Let's try it again, but because the application is running for sure. Okay. It does some curls, and now I'm expecting it to actually tap to the MCP tool to check for the topic messages. Exactly, yeah. But then we had the error on that tool call. I'm not sure what's happening, but we need to check that. First time I'm seeing that.
Audience-driven testing.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, the next thing that I can go ahead and do is to add tests on top of that as well. Again, like using the search docs. This is very interesting because it says that out of space and code cache adapters. It seems like a JVM issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is the sort of thing that you will only get when you're doing a demo to lots of people. And no matter how many times you try and reproduce it, you will never see that again.
Yeah, no. I'm going to stop it by not doing that. So now I can go ahead and say if the order is actually yes. I'll just check that the extension is. Oh, I think we have a problem with the demo overall because I can't even get the topics. So the MCP tool doesn't work because the application in demo doesn't really work in that case. Let's have a quick fix on that. I wonder which Java version that I'm using. Did I install the Java 25? And now we can maybe start over. Extensions, topics. How can I repeat the yes here? Now it wants to use the get help and poll endpoints. Again, this also like circles back to the more relevant information that you can give to the LLM, the more it is more capable on doing the tasks that you want to it to do. And it's called curl on a bunch of endpoints. And I'm guessing that again, it will go ahead and check the topic messages on other events. It's returned back like a bunch of events that was on that topic, and it was using the dev service that was created by the demo. And lastly, what we can do is, if you have some time, but I'm not sure if it will finish exactly, add tests to verify that Kafka events are received. And what I'm expecting is with Quarkus Kafka extension, we have a Kafka companion that eases like writing those kind of tests. And now, strangely, each time I'm using this demo with cursor, it wants to use the in-memory connector. Again, like it goes ahead and searches more documentation about the in-memory connector. So this is a way that we test the application, but without using the Kafka broker as a backend. And each time I do the same demo with Claude CLI, it uses the Quarkus Kafka companion, which is what I was expecting.
It's
but
because
I
demos
was
just aren't stressful enough or exciting enough, and so you need to add that non-determinism just to
yes,
keep you on your
exactly. But
toes.
it's fun to see that it's a very useful tool, and we try to give it enough information, enough context for it to operate independently. But it needs some kind of smart operator as well. And maybe today I'm not the smart one.
But I mean, I think it's probably also interesting for us as developers to kind of see
Yeah.
the things it does, though, because every naive thing that it does, because it doesn't have the full context, we could also expect that a user reading our documentation might also choose to do. And so it's kind of a bit of an insight into like, oh, if we didn't give context to the LLM, we didn't give the context to the users either. Sometimes.
Exactly. That will obviously have some effect on how we are like organizing and how we're writing the documentation itself. But also, it also depends on. It can't magically know. I'm trying to be naive as the prompt writer as well, to say I'm taking away some of the information that I wanted to deduce by searching to docs as well. So I can, instead of doing all that, I can say use Kafka companion, and I'm guessing that it will search the docs for Kafka companion and find its way around. Okay, it doesn't say which tool that. Okay, search for docs, etc., etc. So this thing can go on and on about different things that we can do with the application, etc. But the idea is there. Again, we want to give the LLM enough context and the right context, the right amount of information for it to operate independently. Phillip, shall we maybe talk more about what's upcoming, what we are working on?
I think you've got the slides open. You can just go to slide,
yes.
I think it's 12. Slide 12,
yes.
which is the rest, and just, yeah. So do you want to go, or should I go, and then you can chip in? And
yeah, I can chip in. Go ahead.
So yeah, for the last 5 minutes, we'll again talk about what we plan, and then next time we can start off here. So again, same as last time, I think there's still more use cases that we can add. You know, if we go through each extension, I think there's assistant use cases that can be added. So slowly but surely, hopefully we'll get more of these in. Like we've mentioned with RAG, we've now RAG the Quarkus documentation, but we also want to RAG the underlying libraries and pull that in, like for instance, Hibernate or the small RAI documentation, and even the Quarkus, what's not in the core repo, because at the moment we only do the core repo. And then, yeah, the RAG, we can still do a lot with fine-tuning that ingestion part to ingest it with more or better metadata, like we've mentioned with Context 7 or what's that other one. We can learn from how they've done stuff, contextualizing code snippets and specific pieces. We can probably look at JavaDoc as another input for RAG, or even the source code of the example application that comes with the guide.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's going to be such a good source of best practices, isn't it?
Hopefully. And then yeah, we want to look at resource templating at MCP, especially looking at the workspace. At the moment, we look at the workspace via a normal tool, but we can probably use resource templating and get better results. And all of these, we don't really know if it's better or not, but we kind of want to play with this and see, can we make it better? If not, we know we can't. And then, yeah, more MCP use cases. Like I said, not all of Dev UI is an MCP tool, so we kind of need to go through them and fine-tune them as well, because Ozan had to fine-tune the get results of the continuous testing, because the Dev UI just returns so much data that's just too much. So fine-tune it, maybe even creating a specific method just for MCP and not reuse the one from Dev UI. And then, yeah, still on the list is how do we test? So from an extension developer point of view, how do I test a persistent piece of code? Yeah. we need to figure that out and make it easy for extension developers to add tests for their assistant code. There's something I missed, Ozan, that you want to mention?
I'm thinking about in all the RAG and documentation scenarios we mentioned a lot. There's the hybrid search. Maybe we can do some kind of searching with the embeddings and combine it with a full text search. All this is done inside different practices, but we want to make sure that we find the right implementation for our use case.
Yeah. Still a lot of fun stuff.
We should say that the Dev MCP inclusions for different tools, etc., it's already there. Is it released? I think so. It's 3.28.
The Dev, just say again, which one?
Dev MCP tools open for extension developers.
Yeah, that's been in even before 28. I think it was in already. Maybe the toggle is new in the 28 one.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So
let me
developers can include their tools. Yes.
I guess what's interesting with Quarkus is that in dev mode the application is actually running, right? So you're not looking at the static view of the code where you massage the code or do whatever. So do you have any ideas what else could you do into the running app to to make it interesting and add value, like some sort of introspection of the runtime or some sort of debugging, or I don't know.
We already have some. That's interesting that you mentioned before. The features that we added before the AI assisted development hype that helps regular developers, human developers, also helps AI tools. So the fact that we do show the exception stack on an endpoint call has the fact that the LLM has the immediate feedback on that call and it can react to that. So those kind of things already exist in some way, but when we push that further on, the logs it can already access. Debugging, I'm not really sure how it can actually operate correctly for the debugger. Maybe it can. I'm not really aware of such tools. But logs and the exception stacks, it already has so many information that we do give to the regular developer, and we make it available for the LLM as well.
Yeah, from my side, the hope is that the extension developer will come up with these innovations, because I think you need the context of that extension to know how can I innovate now that I have this ability. So very similar to the Dev UI, I don't own a piece of the Dev UI that is added by the extension developer. I just enable the extension developer and say, here's an easy way for you to have a front-end screen which your user can use. Now we just added, here's an easy way that you can use an assistant. Here's an easy way that you can expose Dev MCP. So it's actually, for me, up to the extension developers to now say, okay, let me think about cases. I can probably, if we go and sit and we go through each extension, we can start adding stuff, but we also don't want to just add stuff for the sake of adding stuff. And that's why I think it's better that the extension developer owns this, in my opinion.
I can see I need to go update the maturity matrix for extensions, because we talk about Dev UI and we don't talk about any of this yet because it's so new. But really, that's something that we should be sort of saying that as an aspiration for extension developers is you should be doing all the cool stuff with this, because Philip needs you to do the cool stuff.
AI enabled or something.
AI enabled APIs.
Yeah. So I think this is probably a good time to stop, not least because it's the middle of the night for Philip. We need to let him go sleep.
Was there
Well, thank-
was no questions from the chat that we missed?
I don't think so. No. So I think, yeah, no, I think you covered it all, and you were super clear. So yeah, thank you both very much. It's really cool to see. It's one of those things, like, you know, like Dimitri said, you know, that it's this framework now, and so then we can see so much new innovation coming in from the extensions, and probably when we come back in a year, we're going to have like even more stuff where, you know, the ideas have come in, and then there's the interactions, and then the models as well can then start to take advantage of it in ways that we didn't even anticipate, which is really, really cool.
Well, we're looking forward the Rockstar extension to, you know, do something.
What? It totally could, right? Because you could take your normal code and then you could translate it to Rockstar, and that's just such a natural thing to do with LLM, because it just, I mean, write a poem, right? It's classic use case.
Yes. Good stuff, folks.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, excellent. And I will see you all next week.
Thank
See you.
Bye-bye.